Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, whatever part of the world you are tuned in from. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth, December 10th, 2022. As always, today's episode is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. For the spicy, sweet, savory taste of game time, there's only one G Vegas. Go to www.gvegas.webs.com. Get it shipped right to your door. Go green, go fresh. Put the whamma jamma in your mouth. As the listeners know, we discuss comedians here, and we got a big name to discuss today, Mr. Weird Al Yankovic. To do that, I have on guest Mr. Ken Purdie. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thanks, Dennis. Well, nice to see you.
Well, thank you for being on. Like I said, we discuss mainstream comedians here on the show. I sent you over a list of about 20 comedians. I said pick one, and you picked Weird Al. What made you pick him?
Well, I've been a Weird Al fan from way back, even before his first album, which was in 3D, which was his original air quotes debut album. He actually had an album before that one, and that's where I became a Weird Al fan, which I think it was just called Weird Al Yankovic.
Okay, let's see. So he's known for his parody songs, obviously, which we all know, and his trademark accordion. He's had songs played on the Dr. Demento show as far back as 1976, which kind of dates us all if we're all fans. And he started in 1976. That makes us old, I guess. But
yeah. I was only 6 at that time, Dennis.
yeah, you and me both. Yeah. But at age 16, he sold more than 12 million albums. I mean, that's ridiculous to think a 16-year-old, 16-year-old kid.
Yep.
He's getting started out on the Dr. Demento show. Went on to sell 12 million albums after that. But he's recorded more than 150 parody songs. He's performed over 1,000 live shows, which I do stand-up comedy. I mean, 1,000 live shows. There's only 365 days in a year. I mean, that's quite the schedule right there. Have you ever seen him live? Or
I've seen him live 5 or 6 times. It is a great show that he does.
Where have you seen him at? What place do you remember? What's your favorite?
I've seen him at Foxwoods. I've seen him at Mohegan Sun. I saw him at the Big E. I saw him at the Woodstock Fair. I saw him at the Lowell Memorial, and I saw him up at the casino at Hampton Beach.
Wow, so you're like a real big fan. You definitely get out for the guy, huh?
Yep. And it's funny because the one concert that sticks out in my head so much was the Big E concert. Because have you been to Big E concerts before?
When I was a kid, my parents took me there. I haven't as an adult, but I do remember I took a helicopter ride there as a kid. It was the first time ever flown.
It's funny because they let people in to see their main headliners. It's free of charge once you get in. And what happened was the stadium part had filled up with all these people, and there were probably 1,000 people standing behind. And it's funny because everyone, included in the front and the back, when he started singing Harvey the Wonder Hamster, just broke out. And that's all you could hear is probably 2,000 to 3,000 people singing with him, Harvey the Wonder Hamster.
Everybody chanting in with him, right? Yeah, that's the good part of a live show. You don't get that on like YouTube or nothing. You got to be there to experience it live.
Yep.
All right, let's see. He's won 5 Grammy Awards and 11 nominations, which to win 1 Grammy saying something. 4 gold records, 6 platinum records, top 10 Billboard hit with his album Straight Outta Linwood, which Linwood, California was where he grew up. Let's see. He is single White and Nerdy off of that album was the single that hit the Billboard top hit. I mean, do you remember the first album he put out?
Yep. Like I said, it was his first album. I believe it was just called Weird Al Yankovic, which he was playing on the Dr. Demento show. And I believe that the first song that was a hit on that, I think, was Another One Rides the Bus.
Right.
I believe it was either that or My Bologna.
Well, single white and Nerdy was the first one that got played on the show. Then it was My Bologna. Then he did the TV show. There was the local TV show where he first busted it out with Another One Rides the Bus. But haven't we lost something? I mean, do you remember being young with your kids, going with your friends, listening to a comedy album that maybe you shouldn't have been listening to, but your parents didn't know about it, and just driving around in your car cracking up? But now with all the free downloading, we don't get comedy albums anymore. It's all Netflix specials now. So,
yep. The first album that I remember that, and you probably are pretty close to it, is Eddie Murphy's first album, Raw. I think that was the first album that I ever had.
Delirious was his first big one, yeah. Then he followed up with Raw after that. But
yeah,
when
yeah,
Delirious came out, I think everybody our friends were just shooting quotes at each other. But yeah,
yep, that was
so how
definitely.
much have we lost? Do you think with all the free downloading? I mean, kids nowadays are never going to know the great comedy albums for the great Netflix special now. But
Oh, you're not going to have that because you're only catching snippets of it where you're not hearing like the whole album. You know what I mean? Like 20 or 30 minutes of there, depending
right.
on if it was on CD or an album or whatever. Kids aren't really getting, they're getting the 5 or 10 minute snippets. Or like you said, they're getting a Netflix special where you got to kind of watch it. You can't put it on a CD and put it in your car to listen to it over and over again.
And if you download it, it's out of order. It's not in the order it's meant to be listened to, which takes something away.
Yeah.
Plus, a big thing, you lose out on the artwork too. I always thought great artwork on an album was a great part of an album. And you lose
And
it
it's
on the
funny
artwork.
because Weird Al's first album, it was a picture of him in an iron lung that was hand drawn. That was his first album cover.
Really?
Yep.
You lose that. You don't get that nowadays. The kid's never going to know that. All right, let's see.
Nope.
2014, his album Mandatory Fun debuted at #1, his debut week, #1 album, first week out. So that's saying something.
That was a really good album. I like that one. I believe that was his last contracted album with his record company. And he said after that, he wasn't going to re-sign with any company and then, kind of put out his own stuff, right. Which I think he's put like 2 or 3 things out since then, though. I know he released one. It was either late this week or last week. He released a new one. I hadn't heard it. But before that, I don't know if you heard it, the Hamilton Polka.
The Hamilton, no, I knew he released some polka stuff. I don't remember that in particular song.
Yeah, he released it, I think it was last year, and it was in his polka style that he likes to do, but it was all about the Hamilton play.
Oh, okay.
And I believe it was called the Hamilton Polka.
Yeah, because he's released some original work. I mean, nothing obviously as popular as the songs that he covers, but he has released some original polka songs. Yeah.
Yeah, he takes basically, for those who don't know, what he does is every album that he released, he does what they call a polka song. And what happens is he takes the top 10 hits that are out at the time, and he just basically plays them in polka style.
Okay.
So like you'll have a 3-minute song with like, just for example, it'll have all kinds, like the big main chords of all the songs that are popular at the time when he does it.
Right. And, well, I guess playing the accordion, you play a lot of polka growing up, so I guess it makes sense. I mean, it's something you can play, yeah.
Yep.
I remember his accordion teacher, he said he wanted to play rock and roll on the accordion, which he had to learn a different style in order to do that, because, I mean, most people don't play rock and roll on the accordion.
No, they don't. They definitely do not. I don't think anyone's done it since either.
Probably not. He's an original for sure. Well, here's another one kids of today are going to lose out on. The MTV video success just furthered his popularity once he got on there, which if you were in the 80s, I mean, every kid was watching MTV. It was such a big channel, and they lost because the Nielsen ratings, you tune in and watch a video you liked, and if you hit one you didn't like, you'd watch, click away, where every other channel, you'd watch a half-hour show and stay tuned in. So that's why MTV got rid of the videos. But
yeah, and that was kind of a loss for MTV. I mean, for me, if I knew a song was, you know what I mean, there was no way to find out what song was coming. So if I wanted to see the Weird Al, there was no YouTube back in the day.
Right.
So if I wanted to see it, we had to sit on MTV, even if we just left it on.
Yeah, there'd be marathons. You'd leave it all day waiting to hear your song. But I guess money rules the world, and they went for the money with the Nielsen ratings instead of what people wanted. But as you mentioned, the decline of MTV used most artists. Now they use YouTube for their videos. So, I mean, that's like a major platform now. Let's see. Today's market, he would go for album singles rather than making an entire album.
Yeah.
Back then, you'd buy the entire album just to listen to a couple songs, and you listen to the rest of the album. Nowadays, when you download, you're just downloading your favorite song. You don't care about the rest. So,
and like you said, that kind of hurts where they don't have the albums anymore, where you're buying the individual songs. Where Al, he has a lot of songs that he wrote that are really, really good. That, like you said, they weren't hits, but they were great that he wrote, and it was just, you just don't get that anymore, where
You
you
lose
can
out on
hear.
hearing that. Well, yeah, downloading just the single, you don't get the whole album. But
Yep.
all right, he went on to write and star in 1989's UHF. Have you seen UHF?
Oh, I've seen it probably 100 times. I love that movie. The
Well,
Twinkie
what's your
Wieners.
opinion on the movie? I mean, you love it. Well, what are your favorite parts in it? I mean,
Probably one of my favorite parts is, especially, this, and ever since I've helped at AOTV, I've been doing there since 2014. This is kind of like a takeoff of the small mom and pop stations that you can see. Like I said, you did it with Lemonster. I do it with AOTV.
LTV, yeah.
Yep. And you just see all those weird kind of shows that just kind of roll in, like Roland Scienceman. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it kind of took that and run with it. And I kind of appreciate it more now, having been involved in it, than
It's a
seeing
great
it.
stepping stone. Yeah, I mean, it's free and available, so I mean, make the most of it. Yeah.
Yep, it is. And just seeing he did spoofs of like commercials in that movie. Like they did the famous Spatula City, where you can go to the store and all you buy are spatulas, or the clip that they did for Conan the Librarian.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that was just a few things. Or Stanley Spadowski's Playhouse. Do you remember that one where he had
He was the guy from Seinfeld. There played that
Yeah, it
role.
was
Yeah.
Michael Richards, and he
Right,
had
yeah.
the Wheel of Fish,
Yeah.
where they play. It's like, oh, and it was, I can laugh every time watching the segment on Wheel of Fish.
It was one of those, if you got a weekend off from work, you'd sit home and watch it. Like, it's a great movie for that, but it didn't do that well at the box office.
No, it didn't. It's more of what we call now the cult classic.
Yeah, it's a cult following that he has. But they said the reason he opened against some heavy hitters. I forget what the movies were, but there was some really heavy hitters he was going against at the box office when he put it out.
Yeah, that came out in '89.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine. I think about that time, it might have been Back to the Future and movies like that. And if he was competing against him, like you said, there's no.
Even if it was a good movie, yeah, you're going with the classics for sure, right?
Yep.
All right, he's made two documentaries of his own life. The Complete Al in 1985 and Weird, the Al Yankovic story just came out this year in 2022. Have you seen either one of those or both? Or
I did see the Complete Al back in '85, but I have not seen the newest one.
Okay, now I've seen the newest one, but I didn't see the one in '85. So why don't you tell me, what do you remember about the one in '85? What was that?
Well, you figure, was that 35 years ago?
Yeah.
Where it mostly talked about his life. I know it had some of his music videos up to the time that were on the tape. So not only did it have that, but it had all the tape as well.
Was it more of a documentary or an actual movie?
It was kind of both. You know what I mean? You know how he did, like, in the '80s when he had Al TV on MTV? It was kind of the same vein as that.
Okay.
And he used it to throw like some of his music videos on at the time. I'm trying to remember. I think Living with a Hernia was on there. I think Eat It was on there. I don't remember the other ones though.
All right. Now the Weird Al Yankovic story, which if people don't know, that started out as years ago. They made a little what was it? Funny or Die. That was a big thing at the time. They made an original little clip about a Weird Al movie that was never going to be made. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to get the fans interested. Okay. And now the little clip that they made like a trailer for a movie that was never going to be made. The trailer became so popular that the fans demanded they actually made the movie. Everybody knew the movie wasn't going to be made, but the fans demanded it get made. So finally, power of the people, they got the movie made. I did watch it, and it's one of more of those. It's a corny funny rather than actual funny.
I haven't had a chance to see it, but I want to see it with Daniel Radcliffe as Weird Al.
That he did a good job. I mean, it wasn't accurate at all as to actually how Weird Al came to be. It was kind of more backwards, but I mean that was part of it.
I think they said when they made it, that was the plan. It was going to be a poke at Al's life. It wasn't going to be all of his real stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't accurate at all. I mean, he was putting out that he put out Eat It before Michael Jackson put out Beat It, and Michael Jackson copied him. It was kind of a twist. Like, no, that ain't how it happened. But
yeah.
Let's see. Now you mentioned it, Al TV special on MTV, where he did some voice acting, television, and some web content too. But what do you remember about the MTV Weird Al show?
What I remember about it is that's where we first saw. A lot of times when you knew it was coming on, he would have his videos on there, and he also did fake interviews. I don't know if you've ever seen those where he brings up a question, but it's a clip from another interview that someone did. And so he'll ask like ridiculous questions and then pull the real clip in. And like Mick Jagger saying something, and the question Al asked would be totally outrageous. But the clip they brought in was what he actually said to another question.
Right.
It is so funny.
Well, there's a lot you can do in editing nowadays, that's for sure, to make stuff funny. That's an art form in itself. Here's one I didn't know about him, but he's written 2 children's books. When I Grow Up in 2011 and My New Teacher and Me in 2013. Did you know he wrote children's books?
Yes, I did. Did you know that he also did? It's a really hard thing to find. He did a rendition of Peter and the Wolf.
Really?
And it was an album that he did. It is really hard to find because people didn't think of it at the time that, Al doing Peter and the Wolf. But if you can find that, that's worth a few bucks.
It just goes to show you. I mean, even as big a star as he is, he's got other interests, to put out children's books that he had other interests in life than just parody songs.
Yep.
So let's see. For his 7th birthday, a door-to-door salesman offered his parents guitar or accordion lessons at a local music store, and his parents chose the accordion because they were convinced it was going to revolutionize rock and roll over the guitar, which, as we know, the guitar went on to revolutionize rock and roll, not the accordion. Bad choice by his parents, but it turned out good for him. He said he took lessons for 3 years, then he went on his own. Have you ever tried the accordion, Ken?
No, the only instrument I've ever tried is the guitar and the trombone back in Elm Street School with Mr. Darby.
Okay.
That was my musical, and it didn't go very far.
I took up the guitar when I was young. I was starting to get really good at it, and I upgraded it. I got an old guitar, upgraded and bought an expensive guitar, and a week later, my girlfriend told me she was pregnant, so away went the guitar, off to work. I never touched it since. Who knows? I could have been a great guitarist. Who knows? We'll never know. But let's see. Al said he's a big fan of Elton John, and that was why he learned to play rock and roll on the accordion, because Elton inspired him. He was a big fan of Mad Magazine, Monty Python, and George Carlin. I mean, you a big fan of any of those that we grew up on? Or?
Yeah, all of them. I mean, I used to stay up, if you remember, the old Monty Pythons used to be here in Massachusetts. It was on Channel 2, PBS, but they were on Friday nights from 11 to 12. I'd wait for the parents to go to bed and then watch Monty Python. Only because for those who haven't seen the Monty Python Flying Circus, at times it's very risque, I guess you could call it, where it shows, female nudity and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you got late night, you could see that stuff. They'd edit it out if it was during the daytime, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but Monty Python, George Carlin, all of those, again, growing up, some great comedy stuff.
Yeah, even Mad Magazine. I remember everybody sketching on the notebooks, in school and stuff. All the stuff from the Mad Magazine. It was.
Yep.
That
was definitely a magazine that I bought every week, and it's funny because I used to buy Mad Magazine mostly for Spy versus Spy. I love Spy versus Spy.
Yeah, I don't remember Spy versus Spy.
That was the white suited spy and the black suited spy. In each episode, they were trying to do something and would kill the other one. So if white killed the black one in the first one, then it was reversed. And it also became a popular video game back in the 80s. It was for Commodore 64 and the old computers.
Really? Yeah, actually, MTV, I was always a late night owl. If you're up at 1, 2 in the morning, they'd have reruns of Monty Python you could watch. So that was where I first got exposed to, was watching the reruns at 1, 2 in the morning on MTV. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. Weird Al's a very smart person. Okay, he's very intelligent. He started school a year earlier than most kids. He skipped the 2nd grade. He was so smart they boosted him ahead of grade. Because he got boosted ahead of grade, he was labeled a nerd in school, which kids love to make fun of you back then, boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you didn't want to skip a grade. All of a sudden, you're the nerd or the book geek or whatever. He graduated valedictorian. He went on to college. He has a bachelor's degree in architecture, which I didn't know. He could build you a house, I guess, if he wanted to. But
yep, yeah, because I think that the story behind that was he wanted something. He told his father he would go into something in case the music didn't work, so he would have something to fall back on. So he went into architecture.
All right. So I guess I never knew how he met the guy, but I guess Dr. Demento, he's Southern California based radio show, and his parents banned him from listening to the show, so he had to find discreet ways to listen like we all did. I remember going in the basement with my friends and we'd turn on the stereo and put it low to listen to the cassette tape, all the Eddie Murphy albums, because parents didn't want you to listen to that stuff. So
now, did you listen to Dr. Demento when he was on in Boston?
No, I didn't. No.
He was on Sunday nights at 9. It was a funny combination because he was from Sunday nights from 9 to 10, and right after him was Dr. Ruth.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, Sunday night. It was on BCN locally.
Was it really? Well, what do you remember from the show back then? I mean, what was?
What he would do is he would highlight certain things, and then they do what they call the 5 funnies of the week, where it was kind of their countdown on what he was requested to play. So that would always air at the end of the show. And sometimes, like I said, he'd have Weird Al on there and talk about his newest album or whatever. But yeah, I think you can still get those through his website, the old Dr. Demento.
Yeah, shows. It was more local stuff that he did rather than the mainstream stuff to expose new people. Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess in 1976, Dr. Demento actually spoke at his Al's high school. That was how he first met him. And at 16 years old, now this takes God, at 16 years old, dudes in school, walked up to Dr. Demento and said, here's a homemade tape I made of some parodies in my bedroom. Would you listen to them? Dr. Demento took it, and the
rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, I guess, right? So let's see, the first song, Belvedere Cruisin', I guess it was about his family's car. And the doctor chose to play that one, Belvedere Cruisin', about his family's car on the radio, and that pretty much launched his career right there, as you said.
Did you?
But I mean, at 16, would you have the guts to do something like that?
Oh God, no. No.
Yeah,
could you imagine someone going up and seeing someone like that? I couldn't do it.
Everybody says, why didn't you do comedy when you were young? It's like, well, when you're young, you're looking for approval. You want to fit in. At my age, I don't care what other people think, but at 16, you care what other people think, you know?
Exactly. And it's funny, speaking of their family car, did you see, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, just before the COVID outbreak, he did a show with Jay Leno. I believe Jay Leno had the car that he had growing up, and he went and picked Al up, and they were doing like that in-car interview that Jay Leno made so popular.
I think I've heard of that. I heard of Jay doing something like that with him. I can't say I've seen it, but I have heard about it. Yeah.
And I think he brought his accordion and played his accordion while Jay drove. It was really good.
That's sad. Jay Leno's a very underrated comedian. I mean, not that he's underrated. He had he's known as the great, talk show host, but I mean, as an actual comedian, he's very, very underrated because he don't put much out. He said, because he don't want to write new material. So.
Yeah, I have never seen Jay Leno stand up, but I would love to see it.
I've heard he's like really one of the best, but you don't see much of it because you can't put it on YouTube and watch it. You got to go see him live. Well, smart move. He's making money.
Yep.
So let's see. Once Dr. Demento started playing his song on the radio, he started playing local coffee shops with his dorm room buddy Joel Miller playing on the bongos for him. I guess in college when Al was there, he became a DJ himself at KCPR College Radio, and he took the name Weird Al from kids making fun of him. I mean, it was almost an insult. They called him Weird Al in school, and he took the insult. He made his DJ name was Weird Al because. Turned an insult into that'll be my actual name. And I guess he's probably laughing at all those kids nowadays. Yeah, who's Weird now?
Yeah, no kidding. Do you know what his real name is?
What's that?
Do you know what his real name is?
Weird Al? No, I've only known him as Weird Al. I don't know.
It's Alfred Matthews Yankovic.
Alfred, yeah, right, yeah. So Weird Al. Well, I remember at school, I was always the biggest kid there. Everybody called me Big Guy. By the time I was in my high school yearbook, I put that. What's you saying? I put big guy. Everybody called me. That was like an insult to me. But at that time, all right, I'm big guy. I'm going with it. Why not? So,
exactly.
oh, let's see. Let's see. My Sharona became a huge hit on the charts when he wrote My Bologna, sent it to Dr. Demento. It became so requested on the Dr. Demento show that Dr. Demento sent it to Capitol Records, who he was connected to, and they decided to release it as a single. I mean, that's a storybook thing right there. I mean,
it really is, because back then, like I said, Weird Al, when he had, or not Weird Al, when Dr. Demento would make an album, he made albums back in the late 70s, early 80s. He would take things like that. He would take the local stuff and run with it. And all of his albums, I don't know if you've ever seen any of them, it is just a mishmash of everything. And the album cover is basically Dr. Demento. And in the back, you can see his studio with all of his records and stuff.
Right. But I mean, can you imagine how many artists contact Capitol Records wanting, hey, can you just take a listen to this? I mean, to actually choose Al, but they gave him a 6-month recording contract out of it, off of My Bologna, off of that single. I mean, that's like a storybook. It's a fairy tale. That don't happen in real life. You don't just send your album to Capitol Records and they give you a 6-month recording contract.
Oh no, because the way they used to do it is if you send anything to Capitol Records, the first thing they would do with it is throw it in the trash.
Yeah, right.
Because they didn't want to be accused of anything. Right. So they throw it in the trash. It's not like today where everyone's, a megastar with auto-tune and everything else. Right. It actually was really, really hard to get into the music industry.
Yeah, where nowadays, I mean, the internet's made it a lot easier when everybody and the brother can do it, but back then, I said, even being a comedian, I do stand-up comedy. Back then, if you want to be a serious comedian, you had to sell everything you own, hop in the car, go to LA or New York. There was no local comedian. You weren't getting nowhere. You had to literally go out there and
go to the mega, the big comedy clubs of the time. Like you said, you went to Dangerfields. Yeah. That was, a big one of the time. And, back then, like you said, the only way to make in comedy is New York or LA.
That was it. You couldn't do it from the internet like we're doing here. You can be anywhere nowadays. Back then, you really had to give up a lot if you wanted to pursue your dream.
Yep.
All right. So Weird Al decided they were going to perform live on the Dr. Demento show, which I don't know if you ever perform live. They're doing comedy. It's a whole lot. You don't get no take 1, take 2, take 3 live. No more takes. That's it. But
yeah. When it's live, that's it.
He decided he wrote another one. Another one rides the bus as a parody to Queens. Another one bites the dust, obviously. Outside the studio, actually, he met drummer John Schwartz, who was hanging out there. And John agreed just to bang on his accordion case to add a beat to him in the background. And they only rehearsed in the hallway like 2-3 times before they did it live. I mean, there was no, getting ready for this.
John Bermuda Schwartz. That's what they call him.
Yeah, and that they did it live. The song became so popular. He was invited to do an appearance on the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder in 1981, which was television. Okay, now.
Oh my God, Tomorrow! I remember that show. Do you remember that show, Dennis?
Again, that's the thing. Dreams are made of, right there.
Yep, because that was on, like I said, way before. Well, that was on after David Letterman at the time was Tomorrow.
So again, he played the accordion, and John played, tapped on his accordion case, and you can catch it on YouTube. It's been remastered. Somebody digitally remastered it. Did an excellent job, but I strongly suggest the listeners catch it on YouTube. It's really something to be said. Let's see. The record label went bankrupt 2 weeks after his song hit, so he got no royalties from it. So they picked up the song Bologna, then they went bankrupt. So having all that success and you get no money from it, but you get a little bit of fame anyway. That goes somewhere, right?
Yeah, word of mouth. That's all you can ask.
81, Dr. Demento put him on his live stage show he did in Arizona. And while he was performing on the live show, he caught the eye of manager Jay Levy, who was blown away by Weird Al's just taking control of the crowd like that, where you said everybody's chanting along with him. That's the stuff you dream about. He put him on tour, opening for Missing Persons, which I don't know. You remember Missing Persons, or?
I have no idea
I have
what
no
they
idea
are.
who they were, but if he's opening for them, they were something, I guess. He went on to write a couple more populars, "I Love Rocky Road" and "Ricky," a parody to Mickey. He hit a young TV in the top 100. I mean, which if you know how many people were on MTV, like every artist on there, you're in the top 100. You got some parody songs in with the actual mix of regular, the Aerosmiths and the AC/DCs and the Van Halen. That's talking right there.
Yeah, the ZZ Tops and everything else.
So he decided to quit college to do it full time after having that kind of success. Which again, that's a gutsy move right there. But he decided to make it. His second album he released was obviously "Eat It," which that just launched him to another level of success.
I believe the name of the album was "In 3D." Was the name of the album?
In 3D, okay.
Yep.
And Michael Jackson's song went on to be so big. How could he not become?
Yep. And it's funny because that wasn't supposed to be the hit of the album. The last song on the album, which is called "Nature Trail to Hell" in 3D, that was the one he was hoping would be the big hit off the album. Right. That's why he called it "In 3D."
So that's the story of how he got his start and got going right there. I mean, the rest was history. He was a major star after that. He opened for the Monkees in the 1987 second reunion tour. Can you imagine opening for the Monkees?
I can't even imagine.
Opening for him nowadays, but I guess back then, yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. Well, I mentioned earlier is UHF, the classic. Like you said, it's a cult classic, but it didn't do good. It opened up against Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Ghostbusters 2, and License to Kill, the James Bond movie. So that's some tough competition right there, man.
Yeah, that's some really tough competition.
Yeah, let's go see the new movie over those three. I don't know about that, but
yeah, I know it.
I can imagine his career slumped for a few years after that, and he wanted to do a comeback. He wanted to parody Michael Jackson's song "Black or White" with a song called "Snack All Night." But Michael Jackson denied him. He said that black or white's a serious, subject, that he didn't want to make fun of it.
And there were a few artists that did that to him.
Oh, there were, not all of them wanted to really put him, but so instead he parodied Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit" and "Smells Like Nirvana." You remember that video?
Yeah, it was basically a screen for screen parody of "Smells Like Teen Spirit." I mean, he had the long, he looked basically like Kurt Cobain in it, and it kind of was similar, but different. You know what I mean? It almost took it frame for frame, which I think was the first time when he did a music video, he did that. I mean, you look at some of the other stuff like that he did, like "A Surgeon," that one, it was more, it was way away from Madonna's version, but this to me, I think, was the first time he almost did it frame for frame with Nirvana's video.
Well, I heard he called Kurt Cobain, and Kurt said that was when he knew he made it, when Weird Al wanted to cover one of his songs, and he was like, "What are you going to do about food?" He's like, "No, I want to do it. Nobody understands your lyrics." He's like, "All right, I guess that could be funny. Yeah, go ahead." It was that simple about it, but okay. Apparently, they're telling me I only got 5 minutes left here, which I didn't get because I thought we had unlimited time if it was the two of us. But first time I seen this, so let's cruise.
We ran into the issue too.
Yeah, usually I get as long as I want, and all of a sudden, if it's over two people, it was. But no, I guess not anymore. All right.
Yep.
So he concentrated nowadays on using as much stage space as he could for his live shows to really put on an elaborate show. He didn't want to just stand there and sing the music. He wanted it to be like a major, like a Broadway show or something.
And like I can say, I've seen him so many times. Like he switches in and out of costumes between songs. Like when he does Fat,
did that. She'd be singing a song, walk through a door, and the second she walked through, be in a different outfit. Like nobody could figure out how she did it, but
he does the exact same thing.
Did some elaborate stuff. 1999, he released "Running with Scissors," where he went with his new look with long hair and no mustache, which his mustache was his trademark thing back in the day.
Yep.
He did MTV Unplugged, which did you see MTV? I mean, I remember the show. I love the show, but I don't remember seeing any Weird Al on it.
I don't remember seeing
I
Weird
don't
Al
remember
doing an
seeing him Unplugged.
unplugged.
No, but I'll have to get that one on YouTube. I mean, it's got to be something to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. 2018, he got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Uh, let's see. He asked Lady Gaga for permission, and she wouldn't do one of her songs. She wouldn't give him permission, so he released it for free on the internet. So he didn't make any money off it. Then after he released it for free, she liked it so much she gave him permission, said go ahead and release it. So
You know, the person who turned him down the most and it really bothered him to turn him down was Prince.
Prince, he was one of the guys.
He,
Yeah, I think
he
I
had
got
he had a
all the people who turned him down. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, now you mentioned Madonna's like a surgeon, and they said the reason she let him do it was a proven fact. When he parodied one of his songs, that the actual artist's album sales would go up. They'd make money once he parodied everything. So Madonna saw money there, was why she wanted to do it.
You can't blame her.
Yeah, she's a very smart businesswoman. Yeah, more money involved right there. He wanted to do Fat, which parodied Michael Jackson's Bad. Let's see, he became a
Lasagna was another.
vegetarian. Did you know he was a vegetarian?
Yes, him and his wife are vegetarians, and I know that one of the things when he went to concert is that you had to have the vegetarian candy.
Okay.
That was one of the things that he requested in his dressing room.
Here's one I didn't know is just the average fan of him. I mean, you're a big time fan, but his parents were found dead of carbon monoxide poisoning from a fireplace. So he lost both his parents at the same time. Yep. And when notified, he went on to perform the show, and he said, you know, laughter's helped so many of my fans. He thought that laughter might help him through. He wouldn't have to sit there and think about it. He'd be forced to perform. I mean, do you think you could perform a night you were told your parents passed away, or?
No, I couldn't.
Couldn't do it, yeah, but
no, I couldn't do. I can't perform now.
Well, I've seen, Michael Jordan. He did when his father was murdered there. That he went on. He was in the finals. He went on to play. Said his father would have wanted him to. You know, he dedicated the game to his dad. Everybody's different.
Yep.
Let's see. All right. Well, you mentioned some of the more popular ones who turned him down, who wouldn't let him do them, were Prince, as you mentioned. Kiss, they wouldn't let him parody. Kiss, he wanted to parody Kiss. Paul McCartney turned him down, but the reason was he said he wanted to make To Live and Let Die. He wanted to do a parody called Chicken Pot Pie. But Paul McCartney was a vegetarian. He said he didn't want to promote nothing, for people to eat chicken was why. He said he loved the idea, but he just didn't want to promote eating chicken. Led Zeppelin turned him down, and Eminem turned him down. So that's basically all I had on him. So we got about 1 minute left.
Less than a minute.
You got 1 minute. What do you want? What do you want the listeners to know about Al?
He is just one of the. If you get a chance to see him, go see him, because his videos are good, but to see him live, it's a whole, like you said, it's a whole production in itself. The way he does it, it is awesome. He does a great job.
I have that. A lot of people see my stuff on YouTube, and it's like, man, you were a little rushed. I'm like, well, they only give you so many time at the major clubs, so you got to make the most. It ain't like live doing your own show where you can just relax and do what you want. If you see them on YouTube, there's restrictions. It's the same as TV, If you're at a major comedy club, there's restrictions. You can really experience it, much better live than anything you're going to see on YouTube, but you got to get out and see them. So